Okay, so today we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines and the slope of them. So the slope of parallel lines are the same slope. So for example, if you think about this, if we have two parallel lines and each of them have the slope of 2, then they are parallel. Okay, so that one's easy. Same slope, parallel slopes. All right, so slope of perpendicular lines. So two non-vertical lines are perpendicular if and only if their product of their slope is -1. So what this actually means is that the slope of perpendicular lines are actually the negative reciprocal of each other. Sorry, that's really messy. So let's think about what that means. Negative reciprocal. So when we think of the word reciprocal, we think of, we flip the fraction, right? And when we have negative, we're basically just changing the sign. So here's an example. If we have 2/3 is our slope, the slope perpendicular to that would be, all right, so I'm going to change the sign. So it's 2/3, so it's positive. So I'm going to make it negative, and then I'm going to flip it. Okay, so 2/3, the slope perpendicular would be -3/2. So this is just a couple more examples. So if I were to multiply, let me just do this down here. -2 2/3 times -3/2, I get -6/6, which is -1. So when you're finding the perpendicular slope, if you multiply those two numbers together, they should equal -1. If they don't equal -1, you have the wrong slope. Okay, so let's look at some example problems. So for these problems, we're going to determine whether line AB and CD are parallel, perpendicular, or neither for these points, okay? So we have A is 1, 1, B is -1, -5, C is 3, 2, and D is 6, 1. So what we have to do is we have to find the slope of each of these lines. So let's do line AB first. Line AB. So I'm just going to write my slope formula up on the top of the paper for reference. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. Okay, now I'm going to find the slope of this line of just AB. So I'm going to use points A and points B. And I'll do them in pink. So this one and this one. So I'm going to label my points X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Now I'm going to plug in those points. And we did this in the last lesson, so you guys should be pros at this. So we have Y2 is -5. Y1 is 1. X2 is -1. And X1 is 1. So if I simplify this, I'm going to have -6 over -2. And I can actually simplify that further. -6 divided by -2 is +3. All right, so that's the slope of line AB. So the slope of line BCD, I'll do in green. because we're going to use these points right here. So I'm going to label my points x1, y1, x2, y2. Now I'm going to write my slope formula without the variables, and I'm going to plug in those numbers. So I'm going to do y2 is 1 minus y1, which is 2. x2 is 6 minus x1, which is 3. And if I simplify this, 1 minus 2 is negative 1 over 6 minus 3 is 3. Okay, so we have 3 and negative 1 over 3. All right, so let's determine if the relationship, if any, between these two lines. So we have a slope of, we have a slope of 3 and a slope of negative 1 over 3. So you might be able to see that these are actually opposite reciprocals of each other. Or if we multiply them together, 3 times negative 1 over 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a fraction by putting it over a 1. Then this would be 3 times negative 1, which is negative 3, divided by 3, which is negative 1. So remember, if the product of the two slopes is negative 1, then the two lines are perpendicular. Okay, so we're going to graph this relationship next just to show that these two lines are perpendicular. All right, so I have 1, 1, oops, 1, 1, which is here, and negative 1, negative 5. So that's down here. I'm going to try to draw a really straight line. Actually, maybe, I don't know if it will let me use this. All right. So there's that line. And now my other points are 3, 2. So I'm going to go over 3 and up 2. So right here. And then I'm going to do 6, 1. Over 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and up 1. Now, if you use a ruler and a nice straight line to go through these points, let me make this one a little bit longer. You will notice that these two lines look perpendicular. So they form 90-degree angles when they intersect. So that is how we verify it using a graph. Now that I've showed you that example, I want you to try the next two checkpoint problems. So you need to find the slope of lines A, B, and line CD, and determine whether they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither based on their slope. And then after you figure that out, you want to graph each line to verify your answer.